had created different versions of me or personas for me to slide into depending on the situation I was in. Can any of you relate to that? I was not truly being myself, not truly living authentically. Honestly, I was afraid to be myself. In some cases, I was afraid to be judged or say something wrong, staying small or quiet in some arenas or situations. In other cases, I tried to fake that I was dominant or tough. And this persona was a great shell for me to not show my softness and my emotional side, really my femininity. Hey y'all, my name's Jen. I'm a health and life coach on a mission to empower women, and this season I call the messy middle. We believe it's never too late to dream your wildest dreams and to build lives freed from the shoulds and have-tos. Here, we talk to ourselves like we do our girlfriends and our sisters and daughters. I will share stories and resources with lots of encouragement and a little bit of tough love to drive you toward action. In this podcast, we talk about everything: career, relationships, motherhood, and health. So grab your sneakers and let's go, because she's wild and freed. Welcome back to another episode of She's Wild and Freed. I'm your host, Jen, and I am really excited for you to be here today. Today, our talk is going to be a juicy one, and I may have touched on this a little bit in the past in other episodes, but we haven't dived deeply into this topic, and it feels like the right time to do it. So, let's go. Are you hiding in plain sight? Yes, I'm talking to you, my wild friend. Are you showing up fully expressed in your truest form? And do you allow your light to shine bright for all to see? If you're feeling a little puzzled or this question is making you think a little bit, great. As per usual, I will share how I discovered how I was hiding in plain sight in hopes that my story will resonate with you, or it will spark a thought in you to explore more deeply into your own story in life. When I ask the question, are you hiding in plain sight? What do you think about? What comes up for you when you hear those words? At first, when I heard someone ask this question, I was a bit defensive. Not toward the person asking, but toward the concept. I felt like I was a pretty confident person. I let my personality shine through, and this didn't apply to me. And the thought also came to me, well, nobody shows their whole personality. That isn't possible. I mean, who does that? Who actually expresses themselves for all to see? It's ridiculous, right? It isn't possible to be that way. Notice how I started to get defensive and I questioned and made judgments on this question: are you hiding in plain sight? A lot of times that is a big signal for me when I get defensive. It means that something has resonated with me, or I know that there's a trait that sort of bothers me that I wish that I did better, or that I made a mistake. Think about it. When you've gotten defensive about something that is said to you or a situation, Have you reflected and realized that your defensiveness is really a defense mechanism to protect you because you feel bad or ashamed or worried that you've been found out? If so, congratulations, you're human. For me, this concept of hiding in plain sight really stuck with me. I wonder if you can relate to that, or maybe it's an image, a song, an experience. It seems to play on repeat in your head. I kept ruminating on that question and then asking myself, what did she mean? Are you hiding in plain sight? Why am I still thinking about this? Throughout the last year, I have experienced a lot of transitions, which I know if you've been listening in, you've heard about those. And as I've been on this journey, I've started peeling back the onion layers of who I am, why I'm here, what I want and where I'm going, and who I want to show up as. Now, transparently, I did a lot of this work with my therapist and working with a program called To Be Magnetic, or TBM. Now, I'm not affiliated with TBM or anything, but I do want to share my experience with how I've been able to learn more about myself and really understand who I am. I've been able to slow down, sit with my thoughts and emotions, use different journal prompts or references my therapist gave me to understand my blocks, my fears, and move through them. And notice I didn't say avoid my blocks, push past my fears, or circumvent my worries. This is really important. Throughout my life, I became a master at pushing bad or sad or negative thoughts or feelings aside. I'm a champ at staying busy to avoid or ignore those things. My mantra was stay positive, look on the bright side. Being sad or mad were not emotions I needed to show. This is how I used to think. But I've been discovering or rediscovering me over the last several years and really deeply in the last year. And that may sound kind of silly, but it's true. I had created different versions of me or personas for me to slide into depending on the situation I was in. Can any of you relate to that? I was not truly being myself, not truly living authentically. Honestly, I was afraid to be myself. In some cases, I was afraid to be judged or say something wrong, staying small or quiet in some arenas or situations. In other cases, I tried to fake that I was dominant or tough. And this persona was a great shell for me to not show my softness and my emotional side, really my femininity. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Maybe you specifically put on a happy face when you're around your family or certain family members. You just got to get through the holidays or just got to get through this weekend. You ignore or allow certain family members to offend or act in a certain way at your expense. Or maybe you dress a certain way or speak in a way to make sure you fit in at work or in a social group. This all may sound kind of silly because we're adults here. Like, why are we putting ourselves into these places or fitting into a persona or really acting like someone else? And why does it sound like we're living in the Mean Girls movie? Didn't we already live through middle and high school? Unfortunately, these things continue into adulthood. And if you can relate, the tricky part about portraying yourself as a different persona or trying to be something you're not is the true you slips through the cracks. And the harder you try to stuff her down or fit her into a box, the more stressed and awful you feel. Or at least that has been my experience. It may be different for you, but if you're tracking, this can manifest as tension or stress in your body. You can develop a rash or hives or other reactions, digestive stress, lack of sleep, those sort of things. And then you may notice you feel relieved or lighter once you leave your family event or that work situation. This is not to say that sometimes life and work or different events in our lives are stressful. There are a lot of reasons for that. But what I'm saying is, are you hiding in plain sight? Are you tucking in this part or leaving that part at the door? I started thinking about characters that I loved on TV shows and movies as a child or teenager. One of my favorite characters was Dharma from Dharma and Greg. Anyone remember that show? I freaking loved Dharma. She was totally and completely herself. She was fully expressed in all situations and stood firm in her beliefs and who she was, no matter the situation. She was quirky and full of love. She was open and free. I've always loved those characters in TV shows or movies. Another one that came to mind was Phoebe from Friends. In thinking about all of this and focusing in on how have I been hiding in plain sight, I tracked back to my childhood, and part of my journey in discovering or rediscovering myself has included inner child work. I'm sure some of you have heard of this or are familiar, but if you're not familiar, I'll do my best to describe it, but definitely do your own research or look into it if it's something that resonates with you or something that you're interested in looking more into. In my experiences previously, I've done some guided meditations or visualizations where I go and see my inner child or my younger self. See what she's experiencing at certain ages. And in these scenarios, I am an observer. So that is one way you can do the work. And in that role, I'm able to understand what was going on for me or my inner child at the time, but only by watching. It's like seeing my younger self in a movie. I am quickly interrupting today's episode to invite you, when you're ready, to schedule a discovery call with me. So if you're curious about working with me as your coach, or just curious as to what health and life coaching really entails, schedule a call with me. The link is down in the show notes. It's a Calendly link, and it'll take you to when I have availability to schedule an appointment. Even if you are not ready or just a little curious about what it's like to work with me, I promise you that this conversation is really impactful, and we have a lot of fun in the hour we schedule together. This is complimentary, so it doesn't cost you anything except for an hour of your time, and it's there for you when you're ready. So come on, schedule that appointment with me. I would love to talk with you and explore what you want and how to get you there. All right, back to the episode. Then the most recent experience I had with TBM, I was actually able to interact with my inner child, my younger self. I got to speak to her, and she spoke to me. It was wild and maybe a little woo for some of you listening, but if you're tracking with me, stick around because this gets really interesting. The first time I did this guided meditation, or they call them deep imaginings, I met myself at 9 years old. It was so powerful because that was an age that a lot of things changed for me. This is where I decided in my 9-year-old brain that I needed to be a chameleon. And through this beautiful interaction that I had with my 9-year-old self, she said something to me that has really stuck with me. She took me to her room where she played on the floor with her toys, and we were just talking back and forth, and then she said to me, "I'm scared." And I asked her, "What are you scared of? What's scaring you right now?" And she said, "I don't know who I need to be to make them happy." She didn't say who they were, and honestly, I'm still trying to unpack that because I don't remember anyone flat out telling me that I needed to be someone different. But in my 9-year-old mind, I had determined that in order to be liked or even loved, to fit in, I needed to be whoever they needed me to be. I mean, that sums up this entire podcast episode. It was so powerful and beautiful, and I'm so grateful that I got to see my 9-year-old self and that she got to see me as an adult. It was sweet. I cried. We laughed. I felt a sense of needing to mother her, but mostly I just felt pure love for her. Now, since that interaction, I have done the inner child work several more times. The second time I went into the DI, or deep imagining, I saw my 13-year-old self. And this was another pivotal time in my life, and maybe you can relate to that. It's such a confusing time for kids. We are going through all of these changes. We feel like a kid sometimes, and then other times we don't, and we don't want to be treated like one. All of the hormones and emotions and just confusion. And this interaction was much different for me with my 13-year-old self. She was happy to meet me as her adult self and had a lot more questions to which I did not answer. Well, except the fact that our chest was not going to grow. I felt like I just needed to let her know that. I did feel compelled to tell her, though, that she can trust herself. She can trust her inner knowing. I told her that her intuition will not lead her astray. You see, it's around this age when I stopped listening to my inner knowing. I thought that she was dangerous. She put thoughts and feelings in my head that were disruptive, and I was questioning things that I had believed my whole life. I believed my intuition was bad, that those thoughts and those feelings, even if they were positive or affirming ones, could not be trusted. These realizations have been quite jarring to me. These interactions with my younger self were beautiful and emotional, and I feel so honored that my inner child trusted me enough and allowed me to experience her at those ages. Now, here's something that's even wilder. I've mentioned on, I think, one other episode that I work with oracle cards. And this is a new practice for me. I am not sure if I'm doing it exactly right, but I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do it, to be honest. So usually on a Sunday night, to set the tone for the week, I pull a card or two, or sometimes three. And this week, I pulled the Inner Trust card. I had been planning to record this episode as I am right now, and it was just wild to me that I pulled this card. So I'm going to read just a little bit from the booklet that comes with the card deck. Inner Trust. Though it may be cloaked and hidden, within you lies natural magnificence, vibrancy, and true uniqueness. The harder this is for you to believe, the more growth this oracle is offering you now. Your opportunity for growth lies in letting go of the need to hide yourself from the world and to let go of any doubt about the wonder of what lies within you. This oracle brings you a message that it is time for you to trust yourself and to let the real inner you out from behind the veil. I'm almost getting emotional on that. I have pulled this card actually a couple of times, but exploring hiding in plain sight, putting up that shell, that wall, not trusting myself, it's been a journey, a struggle, has been what I've been working through so much in the last year. And then to pull that card and to read that last night as I was preparing also to share this podcast with you all, or this episode, was just amazing. And, you know, whatever you believe, God, spirit, the universe, it works for you if you listen. So I share these experiences I've had with inner child work with you because these moments with my 9 and 13-year-old Jen, I've discovered that I've been hiding in plain sight, not showing my true colors, not expressing myself, or shining my light. And this work is not easy. I've experienced waves of emotions, and I couldn't have done it without my therapist and TBM. And definitely also talking with my closest friends and family. I'm so grateful to my friends and my sister who have been there as I've experienced multiple transitions this year. I'm so grateful to my therapist and the questions she asked me to really help me pause and think, and the resources she shared around feelings and codependency, which that may be a whole episode at some point about codependency and people pleasing, but not for today. And then the TBM work for reacquainting me with my inner child and the work they put out to guide me back to my authentic self. it's a journey. And like any journey, there are twists and turns and bumps and bridges, lots of U-turns where I think, how come I keep ending up here? And then I have to assess and notice what's going on and work to do things differently, which we talked about in the last podcast. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do that now. But let me ask again, do you find yourself hiding in plain sight? Maybe not even recognizing yourself anymore? Or wondering, what do I actually like? Because you maybe have been going along with your partner, your coworkers, your family and friends, and haven't truly allowed yourself to be, well, you. And this is tough because we create these personas and ways of being to protect us, just like I did as my 9-year-old self. I thought the way to be safe was to make sure everyone else was safe and taken care of. And I thought if I perform in a certain way, play a part, then I could keep the peace. My 13-year-old self really explored her emotions, what she liked and what she didn't like. She tested boundaries and gave my parents a really hard time. But then something pulled her back to playing that people-pleasing, codependent part. The good child, the easy one. The one who gets along with everyone, no matter what it does to her. To be honest, I convinced myself that I was happier that way. But if this sounds familiar to you, who are we really protecting? Your feelings or theirs? This is something to ponder or think about. Are you hiding in plain sight? And I encourage you to journal about it. Journaling's been a fantastic practice for me. And I'm not one of those who journals every day and I have to write a page at a time. I just journal when I feel like it. And then if I'm working through something, I may use those journal prompts. But writing out things, seeing it on paper, and just processing that way can be really helpful as you're working through anything. Explore how you may not be your full, authentic self. Examine the times in your days and weeks or times when you've been around certain people that you change the way you portray yourself. Who are you being? Who do you want to be? And how can you show up more fully and shine your light for all to see? Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you feel free to take action toward building the life of your dreams. If something in this episode resonated with you, I would so appreciate it if you would text it to a girlfriend so she can hear the message as well. Until next time, stay wild.